I wanted to make this video discussing one of the more interesting topics for me in 3.17.2 that a lot of people aren't talking about. It is the fact that we have gone to full hangars in 3.17.2, and that means that stations that are in these locations out in space have pads still, functioning pads that do not, I repeat, do not have an air traffic controller, do not have an ATC controlling your operations. Now, this is a major departure for many players.
Stick to end or jump chapter to hear warning about pads log out.
Because this has kind of been one of those videos I wanted to do the past day or two. And I redid it on the latest PTU patch just to be sure. So this video is from 3.17.2 as of July, late July 3rd. And I have checked as of recording, there is no more newer patches. There is no newer patch notes on the PTU Wave 1 that I'm currently operating on. So let's kind of talk about this for a minute. The idea that the pads are staying inside the stations is not defined because it's not in the notes. It hasn't been announced by the devs. It hasn't been discussed by the devs, as far as I know. However, it is being talked in the great halls of Spectrum and Reddit and such, and people are starting to talk about this topic in written form, and I wanted to show you visually what it is and then discuss the strategies and the thoughts behind the gameplay changes that it could cause. Now, the live video here is from Ambitious Dream. I believe it's CRUL1, but I have also checked this on another station, and it was the same way. At the very least, every single R&R station has this ability. You can see here me noting that the pad, it notes that the ship is on the pad 04, but you cannot retrieve or store the ship from there. It's more of a temporary location that is kind of accepted by the station for you to use, but it does not give you access to the automated services that can pull and push ships. If you were to put a ship on there, there is some important factors here. If you were to put a ship on the pad, it is basically your responsibility to move it. If you saw on that ASOP terminal, there was a claim button. The station has no ability to help you if there's an issue. But for example, like you can see here, I'm picking up different drinks and food and such, and I could have went down to the Galleria and picked up anything I wanted, and that ship would still stay there, pending I left the doors closed and nobody hops in it and runs off with it, which is what I did, of course. The 350 series, the 300 series in general, has an excellent exit door system where it automatically closes the door for you. So you can see me doing my errands here. I'm trying to find the pharmacy and get like the med gun and such that I need for my work and the PTU. I have food, drinks, and such. The point is that you can swing in, get some of that stuff done without having to go through the extra steps of going into the ASOP, storing the ship, making sure it's stored, getting the confirmation. Because sometimes it can take a few seconds for it to actually come up with a "your vehicle is stored" message. I have had multiple times where I go to store something, I go to walk away, it didn't work out for some reason, and then I get an angry message from the ATC and I'm sprinting across the station. So these pads remove that issue. And another thing I can think of is if I was bringing, currently, we don't have that automated medical facility in all stations and all that fun stuff. So if I was to bring in somebody to a medical facility, I'm trying to drag them in here. It wouldn't be the worst option to just go to the pad, drag them out of the ship, and put them on drag them over to the bed and get them healed. Give them a few medical encouragements, and so if you're in your party, and get them stunted enough so they can hit the I need a room thing. But anyway, the long story made short here is the pad system is still in the elevators. The pad system is still in the ASOP terminals, interestingly. So if you forget the pad, the marker doesn't come up. It'll still tell you where your ship is. And there is no timer anymore. This is also the beginning of persistent hangar tech to me. Yes, I went there. This is the most basic form of persistent hangar. I can put a ship there of whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about I'm on the clock with the ATC. I am no longer at the control of the ATC of where I want to put my ship and still have access to station services. So, not the recall and store part. I'm talking about going inside and getting food, drink, healing, and such, and station work. So, specifically that. And this is kind of an interesting side note. Being able to resupply both your ship and yourself from these pads, but it not equaling like you having to go under the control of the station and be panicking is awesome. A very real world example I can think of is you pull up to a station, your buddies live on this station, and I've done this myself. You pull up in a Redeemer and you're waiting for your gunners and they just taking forever. So you're like in this limbo state of, do I go all the way the hell in, take the long elevator ride, and go store the ship just to make the ATC happy so I don't end up with a fine or dealing with them just yelling in my ear 50 times? And then finally they show up and like literally by the time you're storing the ship, they're standing next to you going, what's the deal? What pad are we, well, in this case, what hangar are we in nowadays instead of pad? But in the pads, you can sit there as long as you'd like. You don't have to sweat any of this. So you can organize your ship the way you want it and not have to worry about storing it, recalling it, and also the added risk of that. I did a heck of a parking job here. Yep, there it is. I wasn't kidding when I said very late when I was testing this. But I had to do it. It was the latest patch. I had to do it again. The first time I had a beautiful parking job, but I can't with good faith go and use an old patch and they may have changed, the pad slightly or something, especially because it's an undocumented change. So, long story made short, they've switched everything that is smaller than a cap or studio cap to these hangars. So the small and medium ships all going on the hangars, not pads anymore. And because it's universal now, the pads are essentially in limbo state. And I hope they stay. Because plain and simple, if they don't, then this whole concept of having this temporary quickie spot to get in and out of the station, these 4 pads, is moot. Also note that they're not marked, but they are well lit, and they still have those doors that we are well versed in for the elevators and for the fake hangar entrances and such on there. So they're very easy to spot. They're usually at the end of the spindles too, like usual, like we've landed on many times. Another thought that I wanted to mention is that caps and studio caps do not use this system. They cannot use the pads, although in theory they could like pull up next to the pad, I guess. And and like I don't know, have people hop off, something like that, or have like have one of their small ships, for example, one of their Argo personnel, if they're a big enough ship to have something like that, or a few dragonflies sitting in the bay or something. But long story made short, they can't use the pads anywhere near as effectively. Also, cargo would be useless on these pads once you get to the automated cargo systems that we're going to have with cargo elevators. That's a major consideration. But yes, because caps and studio caps are going to be using docking collars. The 890 already does it. You've seen it on the Javelin Tour. That has nothing to do with this. Pads are going to be these multi-use locations without ATC control, and they still work with the ships. That's all I got for today. What do you think about the pad situation, and is this something I'm kind of going overkill about? Do you think it's going to stay in, which I hope it does? Yeah, I hope to see you all in the PTU, and fly safe. I had this video literally rendering, and then I realized that there was 3.17.2 patch notes. So I wanted to add this in good conscience. I had to addend this. There is a known issue now on 3.17.2 Stanton, ASOP, ships on landing pads end up in unknown state for location and have to be reclaimed after ship is stored or streamed out. Now, once again, this is listed as a known issue. It's not mentioned that they're getting rid of pads or if they're changing the pad system in any way as of what you saw in this. During my test, I left the ship sitting there on the first test for a long period of time, and it was there when I needed it. So take that what you will. I'm going to do a longer term test. Maybe I'll do like 25 minutes and see if it does get pulled. We'll take a look. I think what they mean by this is the unknown state for location and have to be reclaimed after the ship is stored or streamed out means if you were to leave it on the pad and log out, so i.e. streamed out because nobody's at the station any longer, that means that you would have to claim the ship. So if you're going to use this tactic of using the pads, be sure to do not log out in the process of playing with the ship on the pad. It is a temporary pad. It's meant for you to enjoy without using ATCs, without all the extra storing, unstoring BS. But it's not meant for overnight, so to speak. Do not let this ship stream out or attempt to, whatever storing means, because you can't store from the ASOPs on this technique. Tested on 2 different stations. All right, fly safe.